Of course, we know about the Mehdi Hasan, Matt Taibbi dust up where, Mehdi Hasan supposedly owned Matt Taibbi on his Twitter files reporting. And it was pretty obvious to us while we were watching it that while, yes, on points, there's no doubt Mehdi got the better of Taibbi in that debate because Taibbi is, like I said, I mean, I think I even may have said this to his face. I think I said, you're too nice in these situations. Like you have to be more of an asshole if you're going up against an asshole. So, Taibbi, no doubt, brought a knife to a gunfight there. But when you review the substance of what was said, I don't think it's fair to say that he got owned in any real way.
You're at a disadvantage if you really care about truth, logic, rational discourse. You're always at a disadvantage with people like that because they don't.
Right.
They're only about scoring the points, shouting you down, going over you, style points. That's it. They're just about the style points, about giving the impression of being right. They don't actually care about the substance of being right. And when you get into this, to me, even beyond the plagiarism, the letter he wrote to the Daily Mail to try to get a columnist job back, that is the most revealing thing about who Mehdi Hasan is to me.
Look, Mehdi Hasan is a shallow, full of shit, careerist climber. He will do anything to climb. That's why he set up that sandbag interview/debate with Taibbi, and it's why he was as prepped for it as he was, because he knew his job there was to go out and throw red meat and score points with an already biased audience, right? So that's what he went in there to do. He didn't go in there to have a conversation, but what proves, as much as anything else, just what a shallow careerist he is and has always been. He's always been a hack. He's never had any integrity at all. This goes back over 20 years here. Fang puts a Substack piece here. Mehdi Hasan plagiarized pro-spanking column in response to the cable news pundit's dishonest reporting on the DHS and his ugly identity-based accusation. So we're going to skip the preamble here and start right here. Before he was shouting down opponents with ad hominem slurs, Hasan was passing off others' reporting as his own, sometimes without any citation at all. In one of his first attempts at journalism, Hasan authored a column in defense of spanking children, No Harm in Smacking, in January 2000 that is nearly a word-for-word duplication of the article When to Spank, published 2 years earlier in U.S. News and World Report. The similarities are apparent from the beginning of Hasan's piece. Quote, anti-smacking crusaders have consistently relied upon inconclusive studies to make sweeping overgeneralizations about the dangers of smacking. He began his piece for The Independent, a London-based newspaper. It's virtually identical to a line used by co-authors Lynn Rossellini and Anna Mulreen in their news article on the topic for U.S. News and World Report. So here's their sentence. Anti-spanking crusaders relied on inconclusive studies to make sweeping overgeneralizations about spanking's dangers, they wrote. Now, here we just do a side-by-side. We could do this all night. That's why I thought this had to be a segment. We're not going to put you guys through all of this. But let's just read sentence by sentence here. Hasan's piece, and then a sentence from the same article that was published earlier by U.S. News and World Report. So, Hasan writes, in 1998, even the American Academy of Pediatrics toned down its blanket injunction against smacking, though it still takes a dim view of the practice. Let's just take this sentence by sentence. So there's that sentence. In the U.S. News Report. This week, even the American Academy of Pediatrics is expected to tone down its blanket injunction against spanking, though it still takes a dim view of the practice and encourages parents to develop discipline alternatives. Okay, there we go. In fact, an AAP conference on corporal punishment in 1996 concluded that in certain circumstances, smacking or spanking may be an effective backup to other forms of discipline. U.S. News Report. An AAP conference on corporal punishment in 1996 concluded that in certain circumstances, spanking may be an effective backup to other forms of discipline. This is the last one. I won't subject you to all this here because this can get a bit tedious, but he uses the same quote even. There's no evidence that a child who is spanked moderately is going to grow up to be a criminal or antisocial violent, said S. Kenneth Schonberg, a pediatrics professor co-chairing the meeting. We go to the quote here. There is no evidence that a child who was spanked moderately is going to grow up to be a criminal or antisocial violence, says Kenneth Schonberg, a pediatrics professor who co-chaired the conference. So there you have it. I mean, we don't have to go on and on. It's very, very obvious.
Well, actually, but hang on. Go to the Daily Mail application to be a columnist. That, to me, is the most damning thing, because it shows you ideologically he's willing to just be, oh, yeah, no, I'm actually anti-abortion and I'm very pro-family, so you should hire me to work for you. And this is after he had kind of kissed up to the government of Qatar to get a job at Al Jazeera. So this is his application of the Daily Mail. So the Daily Mail, credit where credit is due. They released this letter, which apparently they had kept on file all these years, when he attacked the Daily Mail as being an organization of racists and, the usual shit. Although I am on the left of the political spectrum and disagree with the Mail's editorial line on a range of issues, I have always admired the paper's passion, rigor, boldness, and, of course, news values. I believe the Mail has a vitally important role to play in the national debate, and I admire your relentless focus on the need for integrity and morality in public life, and your outspoken defense of faith and Christian culture in the face of attacks from militant atheists and secularists. That's his whole MSNBC audience.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I also believe, as does Peter, that I could be a fresh and passionate, not to mention polemical and contrarian voice on the comment and feature pages of your award-winning newspaper. I could therefore write pieces for the Mail critical of labor and the left from inside labor and the left as the senior political editor at the New Statesman. I am also attracted, this part's great, I am also attracted by the Mail's social conservatism on issues like marriage, the family, abortion, and teenage pregnancies. I'd like to write a piece for the Mail making the left-wing case against abortion, or a piece on why marriage should be a labor value and not just a conservative one. My own unabashed social conservatism on such issues derives from my Islamic faith.
Yeah, no, he was like basically,
wow.
I mean, he's putting it mildly there, but he was basically a pretty virulent anti-LGBT bigot back in the day. He claims to have moved on from those views, but like, once again, how can you take anything he says with any credibility? He's just a career climber. That's all he is. He just
like
says
Nicole
what will get
Wallace.
him the next gig. Yeah, right. Exactly.
Whoever's paying them.
Whoever's paying him. Right.
That's it.
Exactly. That is all it is. And so good on Lee Fang for doing the digging, finding that. Had to go back a long ways. But I mean, yes, between tying himself in knots for the Mail and that whole plagiarism thing was just so obvious. And he didn't even do it from an article that predated what he was writing by that much. You'd think you'd go back further and find something that you were going to rip off, or at least do a little bit more subtle a job of it. I mean, it was just blatant. It was just so obvious. Right. I mean, it's just
well, I mean, and that's a sociopath. That's a sociopath. That's typical kind of sociopath behavior. Like, because of Hannibal Lecter, you get there's this, screen image of sociopaths as like these incredible geniuses, but no, very often, because they lack that emotional center, they make dumb mistakes. They make dumb tactical mistakes because they don't have fear. Fear is a lot of what informs you to be cautious. To just do something that blatant, I mean, it's kind of sociopathic and flat out pretty dumb. But I would say more just it's just heedless of consequences and not expecting any. Right. And look, in the end, he didn't face any consequences, right? He's just kissed up to whoever was paying him for his whole career, and he's never paid any price. That's something that Fang really gets into in that article, that this is Hasan's career is a portrait of what it takes to get ahead as a pundit.
Right. Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Just, you'll never face consequences for being wrong or for being just an obvious plagiarizing cretin, as long as you kiss the ass of the elites that are paying you.
Please clap.